ब्रह्मा च लोकाधिपति संपति कतञ्जलि अन्धिवरङ्गया च सन्तीध सत्तापरज्जख जातिका देशे तु धम्मम् अनुकम्पिमं पद्यम्.
Can hear you've been a performer before. That was really beautiful. Very beautiful. So, well, I'm embarking myself on quite a topic, aren't I? Deep Tea suggested that I speak on this topic, and I thought, why not? Just let's take a deep. Let's take a risk. But it's actually, I reflected a little bit on that before I agreed to speak on this. Because really, it's a question that many people have, and it's an essential question to understand, to free the mind, to enable the mind to actually liberate itself from delusion. Because many people have this kind of identity crisis sometimes, and they really feel very lost in the world. And certainly I come from a culture that's, where existentialism was very prominent, where we ask, who am I? Where am I come, where did I come from? We're not really into past life in France or in Europe so much as in the Buddhist world in the East, or even other world in the Eastern in culture. But certainly there's a lot of questions people are asking without really ever finding a satisfactory answer. Because there is always doubt, there's always question, on and on and on. You find, who am I? You might think, oh yes, this I know. I know. I've read this one and that book, I know who I am now. No, I know the truth now. And then, a doubt perks up a few weeks later, and suddenly you've lost it all. You've lost yourself. You don't know who you are again. And so we are in a kind of search to find ourselves. We don't know who we are. And a little jerky moment came to me for those who want to have a real conceptual answer about who am I. I wanted to tell you before we start that this question is often used in the Buddhist country like Korea and Japan, and in that northern part of Asia. It's like a part of the koan tradition, and you use the word "who I am" to stop the mind thinking. So it's actually a real work, which means like when a thought comes, or whenever you can do it whenever you want, but it has a mind stopping power, because truly we cannot find who we are. You may have temporary thought you were a man or women, and sort of that's really nowadays men become women, women become men, so the identity of sex is very impermanent as well. So what do? People become depressed when they don't know who they are, what they're supposed to be, and so this question, who am I, remains very dangling in the air, with a lot of proliferation around the topic without really ever finding satisfaction. But as you know, the Buddha was not so really concerned about finding out who we are. He was more interested in teaching us what we are not. We have an expression in English or in French as well. It's called la via negativa, the negative way, which means I'm not. I think you have this tradition in the Hindu tradition as well. You're neither this nor that, nor this nor that, and in the end, you discover who you are once you've seen. You travel along the way to realize that so many things you thought were yours, you actually, under scrutiny of practice and Dhamma, you discover that's not true. So this is something I want to talk a little bit about. Why did the Buddha, you know, uh, wasn't interested so much in finding out who we are? He was more, as I said, the whole path of practice is about, you know, developing this kind of right view. And, during the time of the Buddha, many people asked him who he was. You may remember there's sutta on this, somebody's asking you, are you this, are you that, are you God, are you yaka, are you, you say, no, I'm not this, not that, not this, not that. But who are you? Are you human? No, I'm not a human. So, in the end, he just says, I am awake. That's his, if you want to know the Buddha, it's, I am awake. Have you ever read this sutta? No? Yeah?
Yeah, Ajahn, yes. Ajahn Amru also refers to it frequently, and so does Professor Dhar. So yes, Buddho Asmi is something that we keep
Yeah.
trying and recalling.
So yeah. Okay.
But of course, not everyone, and it's always good to have that reminder and to hear from you in a certain context is absolutely valuable.
Yeah. So, the Buddha was never really wasted time proliferating about the nature of this or the nature of that. He just says simply the truth for that is discovered. I'm awake. Isn't it an extraordinary statement? You never heard that before. Many of us would not have heard this. To think my identity, I'm just awake. So this is worth contemplating. When we spend maybe hours and hours, days, years, working on that book, this teaching, that teaching, hours reading words upon words upon words upon words to find out what the Buddha is teaching. But the whole path of practice is actually to develop this awakefulness. So it's not like it's not something that you haven't heard before, but the mind is so intent on falling asleep. The mind is so intent on being distracted or forgetting or that we continually need to kind of, not necessarily a teacher has to do this, but in our practice, we have to continually, be alert to the mind that is falling back into habits, into conditioning, into action and speech and so on that really we dislike. We don't like it. Once you've discovered the result of good practice, with when you are able to speak what you want to say, to do what you really want to do, not that you can always do what you want to do, but to do wherever you are, you can have that influence of the Buddha Dhamma, the influence of reminding yourself to, am I skillful right now? Am I unskillful? Am I doing this right? Is it correct? Or am I just acting on anger, on a personality view that I have about myself, thinking I'm that type of person, I'm not going to budge. I'm that kind of character. Stop it. So we can be very, we're so identified with what we think we are, like the personality view, that, and then we can be also so disgusted with the personality that we carry. Maybe we feel not good about ourselves. Maybe we feel that, I should be better. Maybe I should be, I should be such a much better practitioner. My meditation is not very good. This is not good. That is not working, and so on. So it's very easy for the mind to turn with this identity, with the hope that one day maybe I'll do things better, and maybe I will become more divine. Many people want to be just divine, happy all the time. Sort of be a brahmacharya god, a Brahma god, living the divine life. But what attracted me to the Buddhist teaching wasn't so much to become divine, because that would have been a runaway. I knew enough myself that I wasn't particularly divine or this or that. But the practicality of the teaching was so absolutely, so stunning, was so amazing, that I thought, God, that guy, it's so simple and so direct and so amazingly kind of available for everybody. So available, so easily available. Well, I have to say, I was lucky to find a good teacher from the beginning. I was very fortunate with Ajahn Sumedho. I wasn't looking for a teacher particularly, and I wasn't being identified with a future nun at all. I was just a normal person, wanting fun and having pleasure and enjoying life and so on. But something much deeper was really pushing me in the right direction. And so it certainly wasn't the question, who am I? Because that question is basically hopeless. You're going to find who you are by through the self. The sense of self is going to find out who you are. Do you think? No, the ego is not there to tell you what you are. The ego is to show you that one thing you should not really develop and cultivate and love is me. As an ego, deluded ego. I mean, ego is not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with an ego. It's just a seat of ignorance in our avidya, in our world. It's a seat of habit. It's a mind that doesn't know the middle way. It's a mind that's caught up with right and wrong, good and bad, far and near, duality. It's a mind that just still is not able to abide in a space of non-duality. And non-duality doesn't mean in our tradition like empty particularly. You can have many things in front of your mind, the good and the bad, but you don't have to move with them. You have, the Buddhist teaching offer you a view on things which is not tortured with having to, take a stand on one side of the path or the other side. You just wait, in a way, what your world needs more than anything is the path of wisdom. And the path of wisdom again is dependent on this ability to walk the middle way. It's not a path that is that dependent on many things that you have learned, many things that you have read. I mean, that's an aspect of wisdom. Knowledge is good, knowledge is good. But what the Buddha talks about is not that kind of knowledge. It's not the kind of accumulated knowledge. He's talking about a knowledge that comes from transcendent wisdom. Dhamma, in other words. So when we, so what we are, what we are faced with, often we can easily want to give up everything because we're still very much into the kind of desire to become somebody, to become this, to become that, to become good, to become awake, to become wise, to become blah, 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 all that sort of thing, which is, in our society considered extremely valuable. Yet that desire to become, unfortunately, has a power to delude you. Be careful. Because that becoming is exactly what the Buddha talks about in the second book, the cause of the first noble truth, the first noble truth is, we know, is dukkha, and the second is this desire to become. And then when we get fed up, we can't become, we step back on the other side of the pendulum into not wanting to do anything, not wanting to become anything. We might even end up being depressed and not wanting to really, stand in the middle and wait for the balance of this Dhamma mind that can help us to be patient enough to not move towards one thing or another without really considering carefully what we are doing. You don't need time. After a while, you're much better at coming from that place of wisdom. Then it doesn't take hours, when the mind is clear and the mind is peaceful, then things come through more easily. What blocks the mind, what blinds the mind, is the all the turmoil of our world that is caught up in a kind of world of desire, the world of wanting, not wanting, the world of opinions and views, criticism, the world of that we develop when we when we become educated. It's even a world that's praised, a world that is supposed to be a good thing in our society. The more PhD we accumulate, obviously you have to be a certain amount of intelligence to accumulate PhD. There's no doubt about this, but at least some effort and some concentration and so on. But that's not the wisdom, that's not the knowledge of the Dhamma that the Buddha is trying to transmit us through this teaching. So I brought a few passages, of the sutta. Find them again. Find them. Yeah. So I remember in the at some point, I ended up on the advice of Ajahn Sucitto when I was quite a young nun to teach the Sabbasava Sutta, to kind of go through it, and I was quite novice, and it's quite a difficult, even the word asava is, there's so many different, way of defining it, But anyway, so you could say it's part of the mind that's at the deeper level of ignorance, really well rooted, very difficult to uproot, So I'm not going to go into the Asava Sutta because that's quite a long, a very interesting but quite a long sutta. But what you what you recognize in the first part of this of the sutta is that the Buddha is pointing to right view and pointing to what wrong view is about. So basically, I'm just going to read it briefly. So what I'm going to read you is, as a Buddhist practitioner, is not something new, it's something you have heard before. Okay? So the Buddha says, he has a view, talks about person, that self of mind speaks, knows, and experiences the result of wholesome and unwholesome action. That self of mind is permanent, stable, durable, incorruptible, and will be eternal, like all things permanent. Because this wrong view is called a false belief, a jungle of false belief, a desert of false belief, a thorny spike of false belief, an agitation of false belief, and a fetter of false belief, because the ignorant worldling who is bound up with a fetter of false belief cannot escape rebirth, aging, death, grief, lamentation, pain, grief, and distress and despair. I declare that he cannot escape dukkha. So, takes us back to the Four Noble Truths. He's pointing also to the fact that it's not the self that's going to discover the higher self, if you want a higher self, It's by, progressively, patiently, knowing your mind and its story, knowing your mind and its emotions and its, all these stories, I repeat, listening, getting to become familiar with this mind with a confidence that looking at it, being aware of it, knowing it without having to be swayed by one side or the other, just mindful. This is what mindfulness is about. It's a view from the middle way. It's right view. And so that mindfulness enables you to see things as they are. And for all of us, we have to really study the mind, to see the mind as it is, to the point when you, at some point, you become very conscious, you know that this mind has nothing to do with you. And you say, my God, I don't have a mind then. Somebody, a famous philosopher, I think he was a philosopher, he wrote a book said, Walking with No Mind. It's quite famous in the West. I can't remember his name. He was, I think, Oxford, Cambridge professor or something, you know, Walking with No Mind. Well, if your mind is your, you know, is your baggage of ignorance, aren't you happy to live without a mind? Maybe that could be it. Walking with no mind or not having a mind, it means you're liberated to some degree from the power of ignorance. How about that? That's a new way of looking at it, isn't it? Rather to say, my God, if I don't have my mind, I won't be able to think anymore. I won't be able to remember. I won't be able to, even when I'm 30. You know, once you're my age, you're quite patiently enduring the fact you don't remember everything. With love and compassion. Yeah. So, you know, when you, and then what is extraordinary is that afterwards in the same sutta, you know, he was describing what I read just now, was describing when you consider things wrongly. So the mine, you know, needs attention. But when you really consider things correctly, rightly, properly, as he said in the sutta, then, you know, this is very important. Just listen with your heart, not with your ears or your brain. It won't do anything for the brain. You say, oh my God, how boring. So you consider properly. This is dukkha. This is a cause of dukkha. This is a cessation of dukkha. This is a practice leading to the cessation of dukkha in him who thus consider properly the following three factors disappear. Namely, this is mega, because this is actually the stage of the sotapanna that the Buddha is describing. Okay, right? This is, you know, three factors disappear, namely the illusion of self. You stop wondering who you are. You might discover there is no self. That would be strange. So the Buddha says, the first fetters to disappear is the fetters of, you know, of the illusion of self. Then the illusion that's, sometimes it says here uncertainties, sometimes it's translated as doubt, self-doubt, doubt. Having total confidence in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, in other words. You're not suffering anymore from that, from the doubt whether the past is right or not, or whether it's not just a doubt of I wonder if my grandmother loved me or not. It's nothing to do with that, you know. And then the third one is the belief in the efficacy of mere rites and ritual. So to believe that by chanting, looking at a statue, divine, you know, form, doing ritual and so on, the mind thinks that's what's going to enlighten it and liberate it. It's not that you can't do these things, but if you have a conviction, if you have the kind of absolutely convinced that these things can enlighten you, then you're on the wrong path from the Buddhist point of view. This is completely logical at some level. You might not think like that, but the more you practice and realize yourself, you know, find out for yourself the result of the Dhamma in yourself, the result gain from the practice. You don't gain results, actually. It's when you stop gaining that you get a result. Wanting to gain, that's like that another desire. Be very careful, right? So when you stop wanting, that's when you start gaining knowledge and wisdom. Now, this is not so easy to understand. I appreciate that, because in a way, from the experience point of view, it's much easier to understand these things. Intellectually, you can really get bogged down, wonder, what is what the Buddha talking about? Basically, what it means is more like you have to jump off the trail that try to make you the one who is going to liberate you. Do you understand? You have to jump off that trail. Yes, basically, you cannot walk that trail anymore at some point. That security of being a me, controlling my life, me who is going to enlighten me, right? At some point, why do we do the training in monastery? Because the training requires time and space, but also a very simple, not simple activity necessarily, but an environment, a supportive environment to be able to move out of that, the world of me and mine that has guided, maybe even in a good way, it has guided us, The ego is not a bad, nasty entity. When if you think about it, before you met Buddhism, it served you quite a lot. Even sometime, when I was a younger nun, I used to laugh because I thought, oh, my dear pride, without my pride, I wouldn't be able to move forward, just wanting to be the best of the first. I mean, to wanting to be the best of the first was a bit of a hindrance, because if I believed it, then I would feel really miserable. But just thinking that, yeah, I'm not going to be the last one, I'll do this, I wouldn't say to show up or to show off, but just because I just didn't want to be lagging behind. And that pushed me into practicing more, energetically. So sometimes you can use a kilesa to help you to get out of the another kilesa, So when you, you have to have that, you come to that confidence that this Four Noble Truths for me, fortunately, I was so lucky to meet Ajahn Sumedho, who himself have made these Four Noble Truths the centerpiece of his teaching. Not all teachers have that as a center of their practice, He's quite unique, I think, in the to even at the Buddhist Society in London, they used to tell us, yeah, Four Noble Truths for beginners, just with a bit of a touch of humor, the sort of the beginning phase, the first steps, Four Noble Truths, and then we go on to the more important thing, the Abhidharma, the higher philosophical, level and so on. We get into really something serious and conceptually kind of satisfying. But the Fourth Noble Truth, if you don't use it as an experience in your daily life, you've lost everything, because as far as I'm concerned, the Four Noble Truth is a path. But you have to work on it. You have to really pay attention, because you're dealing with life as it is, life, not just a piece of paper and a book and a dictionary. If you're like me, I like the dictionary. and and a lot of story to accumulate, and kind of. But that, like Ajahn Sumedho reminder, you gave a talk yesterday. You should get it soon, unless I send it to you afterward. But he was saying, a new image, which I hadn't heard him mention until now, till yesterday. I've seen it. I've seen this image before in other books, and like basically the written word is only the peel of the fruit. It's a peel. It's not yet. You haven't got into the juice. of a nice big orange, right? You just, chewing on the peel. And then the practice, that's when you get into the real, life, your life, this life. Yeah. And so I was so happy to reread again that sutta on the, where there is all this question also when also the Buddha says also as regards the present uncertainty arise in him. Do I exist? Do I not exist? Who am I? How am I? From where has this soul come from? Where will it go? So the Buddha consider it's quite a step, especially in India as an Indian, it's quite a step in the unknown for an Indian man, an Indian teacher like him. When you talk about soul, past life, future life, and so on, and then you get reborn into the same family if you can or not, or there's so many parts of not just the Indian life, but I know about a little bit about Indian life. The Indian custom or culture, little, very little, but I was made aware that it's a very, very dependent on so many ritual and so many controlling just the right thing, the right spouse, the right man, the right this and that, with, which is quite interesting. It's not like it's wrong particularly, but the Buddha cut all that, so just walk the path, forget about who you are, get on with the practice, purify the heart, and Bob's your uncle, Sorry, it's an English expression. You know it? Nobody knows. It's the first teaching that I got from Ajahn Sundara in English 40 years ago. Bob's your uncle means that's it. It's just an idiom. That's it. So when you go back to the past itself, those four noble truths are, I was going to say divine. They're not divine, but they have the divine capacity to make us see things as they are. You understand? And by divine, I mean the clear and transcendent view of seeing things as they are. So at some point, you need to have experience, because the confidence you gain to follow this path comes very naturally, like in all other dimensions of life. When you know how something works, then you are confident in your work, don't you? It's the same thing for the path. When you can see cause and effect, you can see the result, when you have had the patience to endure for weeks, sometimes something miserable, without touching it. Remember that? Not you notice the miserable brings miserable mind, miserable body. You might feel even aches in your stomach and so on. And you just stay with it, until it disappears. Things do disappear. Not when you want them. Be sure that. They don't go away. When you want them to go away, they will cling to it to death. So if you really want something to be liberated from something, just let it be. Don't touch it. And you say, well, who is touching it? And who is not touching it? So we go to the ultimate level, transcendent level. Yes, your aware mind, your conscious mind, your enlightened mind, or the mind that is already clear and wise, and that's the part of your mind that is already established in the Dhamma. Yeah. And it's not my mind, your mind, it's just mind. Think of it as a big mind. It's neither big nor small. It's like, I know it's an example which is given for other stories, but it's a bit like you've been bothered by a sound. It's a sound of maybe not afraid, but the sound of a car, or the sound of a neighbor, and then suddenly, and then your ears are really irritated, and they send message to your mind, say, I can't stand that sound anymore, so that gets more complicated. The mind is involved now. The emotion, oh my God, I should be a Buddhist, I should be peaceful, and so on. That's really packing in stuff into yourself, As a Buddhist, I should be calm and peaceful. Ajahn Sundara said, patient, don't move with it, but you just want to go kick the door of your house and really, tell your neighbor off because of maybe his dog was barking for hours and so on. But then at some point, so your mind is completely involved and agitated around all this. Your world has turned upside down completely. And then suddenly all the sounds disappear. And then you feel, as if you had no ear because there's no sound. As if you have no brain because your brain has no object to worry about anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah? So suddenly, your mind, you say, I feel peaceful now. It's only because you stop clinging to the desire of wanting no sound. Yeah? So we could continue for a long, long time on this topic, but I think it's 10 past 2, 10 past 3 for you. No. Well, for me, it's 10 past 2, 10:10. And my program, according to my little iPod, is, yeah.
Ajahn, thank you for these reflections. So maybe if we can invite questions now.
Yes.
So if anyone has questions for Ajahn, then if you can raise your virtual hand and we can invite you to unmute yourself. You can also put it on the chat window. The host is by the name Aranya Vihar Trust, and we'll take your questions.
Okay. Don't be shy.
Hi, Ajahn. There is just one question from me. So, as you were ending the talk, you mentioned about the mind which is not irritated and mind which becomes peaceful. So, can you just share some qualities of that mind, uh, about the state of that mind when it realizes and it stops clinging?
Yeah, very easy. Most of the mind that we know is dependent on things, isn't it? I am happy because I do something, I get something, I want something, and I'm going to, that kind of thing. Dependent on conditions. It's codependent. What is more difficult is to have a mind that is free, not dependent on things. So the mind that's conditioned, dependent on objects and so on, you have many ways. Meditation is one way of making the mind calm, as you probably know. But in your work or in your, in a normal situation in life, you it's nothing much, except simply you have to learn to, the time when we can't find a way of making our mind peaceful, it's not just the thoughts that are not peaceful. Very often it comes from a layer deeper than that thought. I always see myself thoughts just like the wave on the sea, right? What is underneath all this? It could be many things. It could be what they call the asava, something much stronger, pushing, a force pushing. It could be, the what do you call that? the brain that is survival brain, what do you call that there? Anyway, our survival brain, that just push to make sure we survive something difficult. And then, when we emotional thing, we have so many emotions that are not really, we're not at peace with. So a lot of the training of the mind has to do with making peace with what we are, who we are, making peace with our stories that don't even belong to us, with our thoughts that do not belong to us. Our body doesn't belong to us. I mean, it's not ours. And not that I want to go back to 20, but now I'm 75, on the way to 75. I make peace with it, with loving kindness, with it's like my friend. And so the more you make peace with things, the more the mind learn how to be peaceful with everything else. But our life is our classroom, you understand? So you have somebody that's extremely irritating for you, and you learn to find a way to make peace with that irritation. It's not so difficult, do you understand? It's so simple, we bypass it very easily. For me, it's extremely exciting because I need a lot of that kind of thing. I could be very reactive, if I wasn't mindful, because I'm quite an impassionate person, and I have strong views. Well, I've lost my views by now, but I have I like to, sorry, I have to move a bit because the sunshine is really, just a second, I have to move a little bit there. There we are. So that's so, it's so simple that it's almost like moment by moment of learning to see the reaction in your mind, the reaction in your body, the discomfort, the unpleasantness and all that. Then this is, if you are really working with the breath as an object, just to keep coming down, staying present and so on. This is how the body-mind transforms themselves, you understand? That's a transformation. It goes very deep. It's not just adopting a kind of a situation, adopting the fact that somebody said this and that, and you're going to do it. No, you're working on yourself. Yourself. I mean, we're not talking about self, but you could say the part of the practice is really this refuge of awareness. Without awareness, we wouldn't be able to see clearly. So you begin to bring awareness in every moment of your life. This is your new, quote unquote, you could say, a new mind, a free mind that kind of see the mirror mind, reflective mind.
So, Ajahn, is it right to then say that awareness is a quality to come to the center, come to the peacefulness, whatever the external situations are, whether you are agitated, your mind is angry, or whatever be, but still there is a center or peacefulness which you can hold on to.
You don't need to hold on. It's all around you. It doesn't need you. Awareness doesn't need you. It's there. It's just kind of blocked with fire of delusion,
Yes.
the flame of reactivity. You
Yes.
understand?
Yes,
That's
sir.
what blocks it. It's all around. It's always there.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ajahn.
So yeah, it's always there. It's so simple. It's right next to you. You are in it. But sometimes it's, we have a big burden with us to carry. We have quite a lot of burdensome things to carry from God knows how many lives or how many cultural and so on. But nothing is an obstacle. You start where you are, you begin where you are, and
Yes.
that's how you deepen the practice.
Thank you.
I feel I'm in Delhi, I'm so hot.
We're still kind of moving from winter to summer, so in Delhi it's quite okay. Keshavji, you have a question?
Yeah, uh, Sundara ma'am,
Yes.
so we are very grateful for you having a wonderful Dhamma discourses. I have one my question is, okay, how do we make a conditioning of the mind, more awareness regarding inner shame and moral shame?
Sorry, I can't always hear what you're saying.
How we can make a disciplining of mind, more awareness of mind for creating the inner shame and moral shame?
Creating our inner
Shame,
Inner shame, hiri,
inner
utapa.
shame, and moral shame of the mind. How,
no, I don't understand.
Hiri utapa is what he seems to be referring to, Ajahn.
Oh, I see. Oh, inner shame.
inner shame, yeah, yeah.
Sorry. Sorry. Why would you have shame?
The mind says go on wandering here and there to maintain the discipline of the mind. What are the factors we can control this inner shame and moral shames? So that more awareness of the mind, time to time, it will be there.
But I can hear now you're talking about moral shame, iriyotapa. But what do you have a question about this? I haven't got your question clearly yet.
What are the factors influence for the making the more awareness of the inner shame of the mind and moral shame?
How does one develop hiri utapa is what I understand, Ajahn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I can. Are I know what you're talking about, but are you trying to say to diminish the sense of inner shame?
Uh, for example, sometimes we think which is against our mind, inner subconscious minds, and by reacting to subconscious minds, inner say, we create a lot of problems to the life.
Why? Because what goes to
You
the subconscious mind is something that shouldn't
don't
be.
have a consciousness about the inner shames. Because, time and again you violate this inner shames, which require to be strengthened to the life. We have a peaceful life, you can say.
Listen, I'm going to answer you the way I guess a sense of what you mean. I don't I still don't get I still you speak very loud, so it's not the volume that's missing, but your word I don't always get it completely. For some one reason or another, I don't know. I'm sorry about that.
Ajahn, if I may try to uh, put his question to you. Is that okay? Can you hear me, Ajahn?
I can hear you very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what he means is that how can one develop and be mindful in terms of hiri and utappa?
Yeah.
Like everything else, it's a feeling. Iriotapa is a feeling.
Yeah.
Vedana, Vedana. And it's maybe probably caused by a sense of shame about something. Okay. So one is a feeling, one is a story, the cause, maybe a story or an action or something. So this is the Buddha's teaching. You see, you are studying your mind, not just in meditation on retreat. You're studying your mind as you are, experiencing these things. But to do it really well, you have to have some space, so it doesn't become yours again. you are trying with mindfulness, you're seeing things with a distance. That's what mindfulness is about. You have space. You know, the element of consciousness, I was told, is space. You know, earth, water, fire, and air, and space, consciousness. So mindfulness is that consciousness that comes to show you something more clearly than if you were battling with the same thing. And what happened is that, you know, or you don't need to analyze it and so on, you know, unless your mind is naturally inclined to this, you know. I mean, there's no right way or wrong way. But the most important way is that you do it so that you can see clearly that they are anicca, dukkha, anatta, you see. Again, like the Four Noble Truths, anicca, dukkha, anatta seems like the, you know, the ABC 101 course kind of thing, yeah? But actually, this is the hardest thing in the practice, you know. So there's a lot of guilt in everybody's mind in the world, you know, a lot of shame, lots of things, you know, and there is even shame and guilt, even when you have done nothing at all. Just to tell you, it's not your shame or your guilt. It's a feeling that's it's like the worldly winds, you know, like the worldly winds, pleasure and pain, you know, praise and blame, fame and defame, and so on, you know. And so these mental states are all around us, you know, in a way. These forces are around. And so your mind can create more of them by just being attached to them, identified with them. You make them into big moral shame states, you know. But if you start putting mindfulness, the light of mindfulness on those mental state or emotional state, whatever the experience is, whatever you can see, don't try to make a problem about it, just what you see. And if you have time, you can see it a bit longer. If you don't have time, just let it go, you know? And then, you know, what you see. So the more you make peace with these things, the more they leave you. And at some point, it will never be there again. I remember there was something, I felt a sense of shame when I began to be a nun, right at the beginning, maybe the first month or something, you know. There was something in my life I felt I was a bit ashamed of it, you know. And I said, how am I going to say this to Ajahn Sumedho? You know, I don't want to tell him what I'm ashamed of, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I did not know, but I started working with it, you know, the way he was teaching us. A few weeks later, there was nothing. And what I thought I was ashamed of was nothing either, you know. So we create a lot of our mind ourselves. There's no demons, there's no kind of, you know, ghost or whatever. We create ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So next time I see you, make sure you make peace with everything.
Jan, the next question is from Shraddha. Shraddha.
Hello.
Hello, Ajahn. Thank you so much for your talk and for your presence. I was wondering if you could share a bit about how or what made you decide to join the monastic community, and just also any advice you have for those of us who know that we want to dedicate ourselves to the practice, and but also have worldly responsibilities, and to know when or how to know when's the right time or if we're ready for it.
Big question. Huh? Do you have a family, children? No.
No children. I do have parents.
Okay. Did you say you don't have parents?
No, I do have parents, but no children.
No children. Well, to answer your first question, I never wanted to be a nun particularly myself. I came from a family, you know, that was very idealistic. They both had kind of moved on from traditional religious background, and we were educated, as quite free-spirited, like they wanted their life to be. So, I didn't come, I was married for about 10 years, with a philosopher. So that kind of helped a bit to not lose track. And then, but he wasn't religious at all. I mean, in the same, most like most people in the West, I don't know in India, but, we may be interested in the spiritual life, but not particularly religious, it's different. Not subscribing to maybe an orthodox kind of religion or a religion full stop kind of thing. So yeah, I was already searching for quite some time. So when I came to Chitters, I already met Ajahn Sumedho. He came to visit the university where my ex-husband was teaching, and one of his students actually had been a monk with Ajahn Chah. But I was completely uninterested in these things. So it really went right over my head. But I think my heart was already growing in the direction of wanting to find a way to live until my death that I will really feel totally meaningful and satisfactory. But I had a lot of help, and maybe you will too. You have too. I think my mind received a lot of good advice, without me particularly. I think I was, there was conditions coming together to help me somehow. Maybe that will happen to you too. It's like you're interested in something, you look at a book, you pick up a book in exactly the chapter you wanted to read, that kind of thing. Or you go and visit somewhere in London and go to see if Ajahn Sumedho is around, and because he's gone to Chithurst, and I used to visit them at regular interval there when I came back to London. And then you find out that he was just going to give a talk or something that day or something, and they were at Chithurst already, like 2 hours away from London. And then, then I did a retreat with Ajahn Sumedho for 10 days and so on. So little by little, what really brought me to be in this teaching, on this path, I didn't think of taking a robe or anything like that, but it was the result I saw in my life. I love the result I saw in my life. Much more peaceful, much more steady, much more calm. There are many things that I really appreciated that I never thought I could develop on my own, because I was so driven and in a way excited type of person, and very passionate about things and so on. So I never felt I could just go inside and be peaceful, I needed to dance and move and so on. So again, I never thought, in fact, I didn't want to be called a nun for 3 years, believe it or not. I didn't want to. I just wanted to be a student of Ajahn Sumedho, that's all. But then he said, well, you have to wear white and take the precept. And I said, okay, well, I don't mind. That was a price for it. So that wasn't too costly. I was really passionate about this teaching. I really loved it. I still love it. And so, conditions come together sometimes. You have to be, for me, I was very patient because I didn't plan to be a nun. Be careful, don't plan to be a nun. If you're meant to be a nun, it will come your way. So now you have in your practice, you see, you are in a kind of in a space of the middle way, which means you're not rejecting it, okay, and you're not attaching to this idea. Do you understand? You can already prepare yourself just with that much. Because the mind is always kind of going this way, like a pendulum, this way, now, you go this way and find, 10 books saying, yes, this is the right way. You go this way and you find other 10 books that say, yes, this is the right way, that way is better. And then you go the other, that way is better. So you can spend your whole life kind of dancing from one side to the other. But instead, you start already right now to be a true nun, which is not depending on the robe or whether your hair are long or short. It's inside that counts, remember. So my advice for you is start to walk the middle way and get interested in a wisdom of of the wisdom that comes naturally from walking the middle way, from being in the middle, not sort of, it's not a middle, you can say it's a middle or something, but it's a part that is seeing things as they are. It's not moving that way, no directions. You just see it in the present moment now. And then at some point, the present moment becomes your home. You feel really not at home when you're not here and now at some point. But we lose our home very often during the day, don't we? We go and wander on the home of other people, and we battle with them sometimes. We have an argument with another home. That means things are not. It's a sign that the home is not yet secure and steady. But that's all right. Everything is done with love and compassion in Buddhism. Remember, lots of love, lots of compassion, lots of patience. Because this body and mind, which is not yours, is a real pain in the neck. When you train it, you begin to see you need a lot of patience and kindness, because this mind and this body, they're quite blind. Do you understand? The mind doesn't know what to do a lot of the time. Poor mind. You're really lost, a lot of the time. Completely lost. Has no means to. So the Buddha gives us a raft, just cling to it until you can let it go. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn.
There's a question on the chat which says that I'm struggling to get over the deep sadness after an
Hang on, Dipti. I struggle to find.
I'm going to read a question, Ajahn, from the chat. Am I audible to you?
Is it possible for me to have it and read it myself? Oh, it's
yes, certainly.
Indeed.
I can put on the chat for you.
Yeah. But if the question is not very long, Deepti, I didn't understand you, but there was one word maybe.
It is on the chat for you if you
yeah. Oh, that's quite long. Yeah, I'm struggling to get over the deep sadness after an accident in which the bike died. I'm struggling to come to peace with all that. I'm thinking deeper and feeling helplessness to the point of ending. Oh God, I will not end life, but feeling very helpless. Now, hopelessness is a feeling, is not a planet, remember? Yeah, it's a feeling. So this feeling is impermanent. It comes and it goes. The fact that you're experiencing this is quite natural. It's a very sad story. So it was who caused the accident? It was a car?
I'll just ask the questioner if you can just put on the chat for Ajahn that who caused the accident, if you'd like to continue your conversation on chat.
Anyway, I can carry on, Yeah, I understand that it will be a struggle to come to peace with it, yes. But, you are very good at describing your feeling. Now, it's another thing to start working with your feeling, practicing with your feeling. If you're interested in a Buddhist teaching, you can't just spend time writing how you feel. You start actually dealing with those feelings. If you're interested in Buddhism, then you can deal with those feelings in a way the Buddha teaches us, So the first thing you can do, recognize that what you're feeling is quite natural, but you don't have to make it worse by attaching to that feeling, identifying to that with that feeling, and sinking deeper with the whole stories of that feeling. It's interesting. I want to tell you something. A feeling has stories, not just, I'm not into past life and so on, but you have, I noticed in my practice that when I mean, it took me a while, but when I was angry with somebody or upset with somebody, it was amazing. When I was embroiled with this feeling, I noticed lots of story came associated with the same feeling. It's almost like a whole pack of lives, different associated with this feeling, will come along. So it would be really heavy. I began to notice it, to be suddenly objectified. So if I was angry, I remember, yeah, she did this and she did that, and that one did this and that, and this one, did this and that, and I have a whole. Or if it was just one person who really irritated me for many years, then I would have many months and years coming back at the same time. Fortunately, I could let go because I knew already, that there was nothing else to do. So for you, I don't know your name, but anyway, strangers, I can just say that there is no point in just wallowing into this feeling. Whoever died would not be very happy if you did something stupid like wanting to live this life and ending this useless life, as you said. Why it is useless? You haven't caused the accident, have you?
No, she hasn't. It was by the other person's mistake, rash driving.
Yeah, so she hasn't caused the accident. So, at some point you can just send metta, loving kindness to all these people. If you really want to do something, send kind thoughts, towards people who are suffering now. You can't bring anybody back, You can't take anybody back at this stage, but you certainly don't want to destroy your own life, because that would be really stupid. You find yourself on the other side probably in a worse state, Not that I know because I haven't died, but so start practicing. The way you can practice is that every time this feeling comes, begin to put your consciousness onto that feeling and stop for a moment and do a bit of breathing meditation, just in and out, to calm the mind and to see what's happening and make peace with that feeling. The more you make peace with that feeling, the more you will see that you are emptying that feeling of its weight on you, of the burden that you experience on you. Yeah? So this is just to begin to let go of that feeling. You have already done the aspect of empathy and love and compassion towards the people who have died. Yeah. You are a sensitive and kind person, obviously, because you don't, but that, the stupid thing will be to identify yourself with what you're feeling and think that by harming yourself, you will improve the situation that you are mourning, that you are feeling sad about. Do you understand? That wouldn't be very clever to do that. I think if you want to do something wise and good for that, then the best way will be to, do something good for that person who died, offer something to somebody or do some action, that will help this person and you in particular. You can plant a tree or a bush on behalf of that person, somewhere in a sacred place or in a, with a memory card or something, with a memory, a message or something. You can do many things to bring this sad memory into like a field of merit. Make sense? Yeah. Any more questions?
Yes, Ajahn. I'll just put it on chat for you.
Oh. So I just something I was added. He came and hit us from the behind. So yeah, you didn't even have any, in a way, there's nothing you could do with Padmini. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear the sad story, but please look after yourself now, Padmini, now that she has divulged her name to me. Okay, if you speak in your speech, you said that the ego is good. How ego is good when it's conditioned the mind? Please explain a bit more that. Yeah. This is a way of saying that for many, many years, all you had to propel you into doing things and to even be successful was because you had an ego that helped you to push you again and again. I want to be as good as this person. I don't want to disappoint my mom and dad. I'm going to be good, to fear, through all kind of things. So it's not, the ego is neither good nor bad. Don't put any quality to the ego. The ego is blind. It doesn't have anybody. There's nobody there. You understand? Ego is just a package of conditioning that you think is you. And by repeating it for 40 years, you really think it's you. You're nobody else. It's more difficult when you realize you don't have a mind. It takes a while to sort of live without this burden for a while. And so, right, yeah. So how ego is good when it conditions the mind. But the ego doesn't condition the mind. The ego doesn't know anything else. You understand? Fear and desire are what condition the mind. Yeah? And so be careful what you say about the ego. The ego is okay. That's all you have. Nowadays, I mean, many years ago, I used to say to my students, don't moan and complain about your ego. That's all you have to get enlightened. If you didn't have a stupid ego or a clever ego or brilliant ego or whatever, you would never know yourself, would you? If you were dead, why would you be here studying yourself? You study yourself, you study the mind, you study the body, you study, so don't worry about the ego. The ego is not a problem. When we make a big ego, when we become a Buddhist, the ego has become like mega problem because most people don't want to have an ego then, and they struggle constantly to get rid of the ego. You don't have to get rid of your ego. Just stop getting embroiled with it or interested in it. Then it will be, thing will change.
Thanks, Ajahn. We'll take one last question. Avinashi, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah. Hello, Ajahn. Yeah. So I have this question, like how the practice should come naturally to us, like how we shall develop it to become natural. Like, I mean, how we escape from goal orientation. Like I have to sit every day, and this makes sometimes it makes it as a core rather than satisfying my.
Nothing. There's nothing to do about it. Do you understand? You don't transform your mind by doing something to get rid of it. That's not transformation. Transforming your mind is taking notice of that goal-orientated mind, and you love it. You just love your mind as it is. You don't beat it up. You don't hate it. You just accept it as it is. And lo and behold, by accepting that as it is, you will discover little by little that it loses its power. Not because you think there's something wrong with the achieving mind, but because you accept it, and that achieving mind, if it's meant to go, it will go. Do you understand? It will go. But what you need, what is your name?
Avinash.
Abhilash, d'accord. If you really want to work on it, then you have to study it. That's your work as a Buddhist practitioner. You have to study it, but don't judge it, don't criticize it. It doesn't work. It's no point. What works is making peace with it. And then you will find suddenly your wisdom is sending you different message to you. You suddenly, the clarity of your mind offers you a different vista on life, on yourself, on the desire to have a goal and so on. Your life is transformed and changed, not with you, without you, just does it by itself. How about that? Suddenly you meet people that help you, suddenly a situation that shows you better, suddenly your heart is more relaxed and you can understand this, it's magic. I mean, it's beautiful. But all is very much dependent on the quality of meditation in yourself, the quality not sitting in full lotus or half lotus or no lotus, but it's a quality of awareness, that intelligence of awareness, which enables you to know what to do. You'll be surprised. There's no problem. There's no problem at all. Just celebrate your desire. I mean, most people stay in bed otherwise, if they don't have a goal. Sometimes you need a goal. Sometimes people see, I remember meeting a Christian abbess, nearby, who is a very good friend with us. She said, my God, I'm glad we got the ritual, the service in the morning. Otherwise, I'll never get out of bed. Do you understand?
Okay.
Even myself, I think it's really good to have a little goal, but it's not a goal that's going to make you suffer anymore. It's a conscious decision to do, if my goal maybe is to clean my kuti today, okay, that's good. It gives me the energy to do something like that, physical. Then I walk around the field of Amaravati several times, just to exercise and so on. But if the goal is, mixed together with ambition and dislike and hatred of other people who can get in your way and so on, that's what you have to be careful when you have a goal that can naturally pile up a lot of unskillful mental states or emotions, or desires. Make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Ajahn. You've given us several pointers, and the question that who am I seems to be falling apart as a result of that. So thank you for pointing us towards a different trail and jumping up the trail of being a me. So if I may invite Rajendra ji to do the formal Anumodana, please.
So, what would you want me to do something now, don't you?
Yes, Ajahn, after this, if you could chant some sharing of merits and metta chanting.
Okay.
Andamayan Dhamma Kathaya Sadhukaran Dadamase.
Sadhu,
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 Anumoda.
Okay, I'm going to chant the Metta Sutta, okay? That's what you wanted, didn't you?
Yes, Ajahn.
Okay. You want it in Pali or in English?
Pali, please. Thank you.
Karaniyamata kusalena yantam santam padam abhisamecha sakohuju chasuhuju chasuacho cha samutu anatimane Santu Sako Cha Subaro Cha Pakicho Cha Salahu Kahuti Santindriyo Cha Nipako Cha Pagavo Kulesu Ananugido Nachalku. Sorry. It's terrible to stop because Nachakudam samachare kinshiyena vinyupare upawadeyum sukino wa kemino hontu sabe sata bhavantu sukitata ye kechipana bhuta tita sawata varawa hanavasesa Digawaye mahanta wa majimara saka anukatula dita waye chahadita ye chadure wasanti avidure budam wasambhave siva sambe satta bhavantu sukitata Naparo param nikube tanati manye takata chinam kin shibhayaro sanapati gasanya nanyamanya sadhu kamiche yamata yata Iyam puta hayusa he kaputa manurake Evam pisa babude sumana sambhavaye aparimanam hudam madhu chatiriyan chaha sambadam averam asapatam titan chara nisino va sayano va yavadasa vigatamido Etam sating aditeya brahma meta vihara idam mahuditim chanupagama silava dasanena sampano kamme suvinayage tam nahija dikabaseyam punareti.
Sadhu,
Do
sadhu.
you want also to do the sharing of merit? So the version on sharing merit? No.
Yes, Ajahn, that would be wonderful.
Okay. So I have to apologize for my chanting because now I've been, kind of semi-retired for about a year now. So I don't do much chanting. they're not kind of rehearsed very often, so and on my own. Okay.
Please suit yourself.
It's all right. So I do it in English, huh? In Pali. Handamaya udisana ditanagata yo panamase. Imina punya kamena hupajaya gulutara acharya pakara chamata pita chanyataka suryo chandi maharaja gunavanta narapicha brahma maracha hinda Chalokapala Chadevata Yamomita Manu Sachamajata Verika Picha Sambe Satta Sukhi Hantu Punyani Pakatani Me Sukhanchati Vidam Dentu Kipam Pape Tavo Mata Himina Punyakamena Himina Udi se nachaki paham sulabeche watanu padana chedanam ye santane hinna dhamma yavani banato mamam na santu sabadaye vayata jato Bhave bhave hujuchitam satipanya Sale ko veriyamina maralabantu no kasa kantun chavariyesume Bodhadi pavaro nato dhammo nato varutamo nato pace kabudo cha sango nato taro mama Teso dhammanubhave namaroka samlavantuma.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Ajahn, and for your time and your presence and the wonderful wisdom, the reflections. There's so much that you've given us to reflect, and with so much clarity and humor. So this would be really beneficial for us, and we request for your blessings for our continued growth on the path. We also wish you good health, and and we'll stay in touch, Ajahn.
Yes, I've been vaccinated. I've had my first vaccine shot.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we also hope to see you again, Ajahn.
Yeah. And I wish you all well and lots of blessings and good health and happiness, you know. Yeah.
Yes.
Cherish your good heart, right? Don't worry about being over positive. Just make peace with everything else that's not so positive also, because that's what needs transformation more than everything else. Yeah. I mean, by transformation, I mean liberation. You know, Ajahn Sumedho used to talk to us about the difficult mental state as, you know, he used to use this image called liberate the prisoners. Don't keep them in. Yeah.
Very well said. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. It's been really a delight to be with all of you. Also, I don't see everybody, but I think it must be a huge amount of people because how many people? Oh, some people have gone already. But oh my God.
Yes, Ajahn, we had people on Zoom and also on YouTube. So several people have joined from different countries.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And Mr. Da, I hope everything can continue to go well.
Yes, Ajahn, hope so. Ajahn, there's a gallery view. I don't know if you're aware on Zoom on your top window, top right, under view. If you're able to change it to gallery view, you'll be able to see more people.
Okay. I'm not quite sure how to do this, but don't worry. I'm fine.
Sure.
I'm happy with that. Yeah. And as I say, hope to see you soon at Amaravati or somewhere when everything goes.
At Dhammarama as well, Ajahn. We hope to see you here as well, along with Amravati. Once again in New Delhi.
Okay. Take good care.
Yes,
And
Ajahn. Thank you.
bye.
Bye.